What's up, guys? Max here with a brand new episode of the Scuttlebutt Show. It's Monday in Okinawa, Japan, and it's December 7th, 2020, which is the anniversary of the Pearl Harbor attacks. And normally I like to do specials on those days, but I think what I'm going to do is wait till tomorrow when it's December 7th in the States, and then we'll do our Pearl Harbor special. We're going to tell some stories there, and we might go back to some clips of this friend of the show, Stu Headley, who was a Pearl Harbor survivor. I believe he's passed away since we did an interview with him in 2017. He was over 100 years old then. But we'll play some clips. I don't know if you guys have seen the room. It's updated. There's a lot going on, guys. There's a lot going on. There's some cool stuff. For one, the Scuttlebutt now is a Patreon page, and the page is linked down in the description below, where you can go sign up and become a Patreon or patron of our Patreon page. If you support the show and what we're doing, there's 3 ways you can go support. And if you pick the elite tier of support, it comes with a free t-shirt in addition to tons of other great bennies. So if you want to head over there and check that out, that would mean the world to me. Even if you just go click the button and check out the page and then don't even sign up, that would still be great. So thank you for checking out my Goku in the background. So we got some comments here from Rage Guy who says he likes the Dragon Ball Z figure in the background. Dude, I love Dragon Ball Z. I am not ashamed to say that. I love Dragon Ball Z so much. I couldn't wait to get home from sports practice, whatever the seasonal sport was, to get home and watch Dragon Ball Z and talk about how I can't believe it took 3 episodes for Goku to power up, but he's definitely going to whoop that ass now. Can't wait to get home. So the t-shirt is made of tri-blend. So the question is the t-shirt with sustainable cotton? I'm not sure. I'll look that up. I'll try to find out an answer on that. But the t-shirt's tri-blend material. So it's a cotton, polyester, and third material blend. I should get better information. It's the Elite Patron t-shirt, tri-blend material. If you click the Patreon link, you'll see that under the benefit, and you can see what that is. Additionally, with some studio updates, we are improving the show so we can have better live guests and stuff. So if you're listening on the podcast, you won't be able to see this, but what I'm going to do is I'll switch my camera angle. So I have this overhead camera set up now, so I can look down at my desk here. So there's going to be a good use for this at some point. I currently have the wrong lens on this, but I'll get a good lens so that makes sense. And we'll start doing some cool stuff. Maybe I'll start showing you guys some cool things that I have here in the studio. And part of the behind the scenes content over on Patreon is going to be the making of the show. So how do we put the show together? What is going on in this room of mine that I have transformed, much to the dismay of my wife, who comes in here and she's like, what has happened in this room? So yes, so it is Monday, which means we didn't do a show over the weekend. I did publish the review of Mosul on Netflix. That is out right now. So if you guys want to go check that out, Mosul was just an awesome film on Netflix about the Iraq war from the perspective of the Iraqis who were fighting ISIS from 2013, 2014 up to, present day. But it really sort of wound down in 2017 after Mosul was basically cleared by U.S./Iraqi forces. And I'm hoping to get a guest on the show who was there during the time that this movie portrays to talk about how it was. I was almost there myself, but I got out of the Navy instead of going on that deployment, so I dodged that one. But I did go to Iraq in 2015. I was stationed at Al-Assad Air Base, where I spent the majority of the 6 months there. So today's show, we've got what we're going to cover on today's show, the news that we missed over the weekend was the withdrawal of all of the troops, nearly all of the troops out of Africa in Somalia. 2 special forces soldiers were killed on Fort Bragg in a very suspicious way. An airman's going to receive the Airman Medal, the Air Force's highest medal, for heroic actions in Afghanistan. Another story about Afghanistan. Alwyn Cash is getting the Medal of Honor. I don't even need to wait to get to that story. We've been covering this multiple times on the show. Alwyn Cash is getting the Medal of Honor. And the Navy pulled some stuff. The Navy pulled some shenanigans that I'm going to save for the end that have me going FTN. If you don't know what FTN is, it's fuck the Navy. That's what people used to say. They used to say FTN, they would tag it on the bathroom stall. And this is the type of thing that makes people get out of the Navy. So without further ado, I guess you guys want to get right into it from the comments. So what we're going to do is go right into our first story, which is Trump orders the withdrawal of the majority of 700 troops in Somalia. Now, I've talked about Africa, the war in Africa, that's been going on for as long as any other war. I mean, we got Black Hawk Down, the war on terror. We've had troops in Africa for a long time. But along with the withdrawal of troops from Iraq and Afghanistan, we're going to have troops withdrawing from Somalia as well. So President Trump ordered the withdrawal of most of the roughly 700 U.S. troops in Somalia by early 2021, defense officials said Friday, as personnel focused on counterterrorism missions in the region shift to other parts of East Africa. So Africa being a very, very, very large battle space, there is a lot of ground to cover there. And the problem is that there are basically a lot of factions of militias and governments there that are doing all kinds of horrible things. And the U.S. has been there to conduct counterterrorism operations, but it's kind of a gray battlefield because are they counterterrorists? Are they militias? Are they government actors? And there's not that many people there, frankly, either as far as troops go. So our presence in Africa is small compared to presence in other places. Even at the peak of our presence in Africa, it was still much smaller than in Afghanistan, in Iraq, forward deployed throughout Europe and the Pacific. So it's the question is, what is the impact that we're having in Africa now? So it says many of the forces in Somalia will be redeployed to neighboring Kenya, which hosts a contingent of U.S. forces. The force adjustment only partly addresses Trump's commitment to end U.S. involvement in foreign wars, as thousands of U.S. troops remain engaged in conflicts around the globe in the final days of his presidency. The troops will leave Somali soil, but will continue to execute cross-border operations. So what you have here is a bunch of groups operating with virtually total freedom of movement in between state lines, conducting either genocides, territory grabs and disputes, drug trafficking, and terror operations. U.S. forces in Somalia and Kenya, including many special operations forces, have focused on training local forces to conduct raids and capture leaders of al-Shabaab. This is the kind of where you hear unilateral and bilateral operations. So operations can be conducted unilaterally by the United States. They could be conducted unilaterally by the host nation, or they can be conducted bilaterally with U.S. and host nation. The fact of the matter is there's virtually no unilateral operations that are host nation. That's very uncommon. Only when, if Americans leave base with a team, with host nation partner forces, it's a bilateral operation. I mean, there's just no way around it that if you go out into the battle space, you're part of the conflict. So there's been bilateral operations where Americans, primarily from the Army, have been training and fighting alongside African forces to try to put them in control of their territory, and that's what has not happened. So the United States also conducts airstrikes and surveillance missions from airstrips in the region. So the United States, when they do go to other countries to support host nations, bring air power. And air power is virtually unmatched in any of the conflicts that we're in. And not only unmatched, but there's like not even an answer. So America basically has all of the air power, and the other countries that we conduct conflicts with, wars with, don't have any at all. So that is a huge way to support host nations. So the United States also conducts airstrikes and surveillance missions from airstrips in the region. In January, a U.S. soldier and 2 American contractors were killed by al-Shabaab militants in a brazen pre-dawn attack on the airbase on the Kenyan coast. About 200 U.S. troops and 100 contractors were in Kenya at the beginning of the year. The Pentagon sought to reassure allies in the region over the changes. The U.S. military is not withdrawing from East Africa, Army General Stephen Townsend, the commander of U.S. Africa Command, said in a statement. Our presence in Somalia will decrease significantly, but U.S. forces will remain in the region, and our tasks and commitment to partners remain unchanged. So we're not leaving Africa, but we're changing Africa's organization of where the troops are at. So al-Shabaab's grip over Somalia has waned since its inception in 2006. Militants there have bedeviled troops and civilians on their mission to capture territory and impose harsh Islamic law. A car bomb paired with an assault by gunmen on a Mogadishu hotel killed 11 in August. The group also launches occasional terrorist attacks in Kenya. In Africa, it's like we don't really discuss this too much publicly on the news, but Africa suffers regular mass casualty events where people go in and shoot up malls, shoot up hotels, shoot up a beach, a school, something like that. Car bombs, IEDs. It's like the forgotten war. Like it's the Korean War. They call it the forgotten war because nobody really talks about Korea. They kind of breeze over World War II to Vietnam. But we've been having a conflict in Africa that's been going on for an extraordinarily long time, and we don't really ever talk about it. There's been people deploying there on a regular basis, regular rotations for 2 decades. So the decision to relocate forces in Somalia came soon after a Defense Department Inspector General report found that militants in Somalia are resilient in the face of U.S. operations with poor marks for the Somali military. Basically, in other words, what they're saying is just like in Iraq and Afghanistan, the militants are more determined to win than the country is. That's just, unfortunately, the fact that we're facing there. It's like, it seems like in Iraq, in Afghanistan, throughout Africa, the nation that we're in doesn't want it bad enough. Like, they don't want to win. They're not willing to get organized, to get trained, to go out and fight and hold ground for whatever reason. I mean, I don't even have an explanation. I can't tell you why in Afghanistan people were cool with their kids getting blown up. I can't tell you why in Iraq people threw down their weapons and ran when ISIS showed up. I can't tell you that because I don't freaking know, frankly. It's kind of mind-boggling to me, but it seems like that's what we're up against. As of now, we're leaving that area in Africa without victory. Like, we're leaving it, and it's going to probably be bad for Somalia. But again, just like I've said on the show about Afghanistan and Iraq, if we're not committed to all-out victory and all-out war, then why are we maintaining a few people there, a few probably SF teams with support staff to do what? To train locals who are just not doing their part? So, it is what it is. That's my perspective on it, and that's one of the stories that we're covering today is the U.S. withdrawal from Somalia. So Rage Guy says 2 died under suspicious circumstances like Among Us. Yeah, I guess. I haven't played Among Us. I have heard cool things about it, and I even started calling people sus because I have seen those memes, and I kind of think that they're funny. So maybe what I'll do is I'll try to play Among Us. Like, I don't even know how to play it. Is it a console game? Is it on a computer? I don't game, you guys. I know I'm a YouTuber and I don't game, which is like insane. I should have like a gaming channel and a Twitch stream and all that stuff, but I don't. I like to come on here and talk about military stuff. Colton says, tribal people gonna tribe. Hey man, that's really true, dude. You can't unite these nations under the flag. They don't have that spirit. So they exist in their smaller community, and I haven't been to Africa, so I'm talking from the perspective of Iraq and Afghanistan. Their scope of what their country is their village, and their tribe is their family, and that's all they're worried about, and they're easily manipulated by both sides. So as Americans, we can go in there and tell them, hey, you've got to do this, and this is what's going on in the world, but it's up to them to receive that or whatever they're going to do. They could just as easily be influenced by Taliban saying, hey, by the way, America is torturing anyone who's Islam in the United States. They're capturing them and killing. Like, they could go around and spread lies like that and misinformation and then make those people fight Americans. It's just a crazy situation that we're in where that's going on. So, it's really tough to battle that. It's really difficult. So the next story was that I want to get to is kind of crazy. And there's an update to this story that I saw. I think this story broke on Friday my time, but the Army is investigating the death of 2 Special Forces soldiers on Fort Bragg. And it seems like if you guys watch the show every week, we're talking about murderers on Army bases every week. And this appears to be another one, because when I get into it, you'll see why this is sus. So the Army identified Master Sergeant William Levine II as one of 2 people found dead in a Fort Bragg training area Wednesday afternoon. So they were on a range. Levine was signed to Headquarters and Headquarters Company, Army Special Operations Command, the Army wrote in a press release on Friday. Now, Fort Bragg is also where Army Special Forces training is, so it's like the home of Army Special Forces. So the loss of a soldier is always tragic, said Lieutenant Colonel Justin Duvall, commander of Headquarters and Headquarters Company. Master Sergeant Levine dedicated himself to the Army for 19 years and deployed multiple times in the defense of our nation. Our condolences go out to his family during this difficult time. You know, I'll tell you what is really tough about that is him having been in the Army for 19 years and spending so much time away from home, not just on deployment, but you guys can understand, if you're Special Forces, you're gone probably twice as much on training as you are on deployment, and that basically effectively never stops, and it's really hard on the families. So to know that this guy was in 19 years probably getting ready for potentially retiring or eligibility for retirement to go spend time with his family, and now he's dead. That's horrible. That's tragic, and that's heartbreaking. So I'm really sorry. My condolences go out to him and his family. That's really tough. That's like, you know, in Lethal Weapon when he's like, I'm 2 days from retirement or whatever. That's freaking horrible, man. That sucks. And another thing is that he was a Master Sergeant. So basically in Army Special Forces, a Master Sergeant would be, if he was attached to a team, he would be like an 18 Zulu is what they call it, which is like a team sergeant role. He could have not been a team sergeant, but normally a team sergeant would be like an E8 level. So he was very senior enlisted, if you guys are not familiar with Army structure. So Levine, 37, enlisted in the Army in 2001. 6 years later, he graduated from the Special Forces Qualification Course, or the Q course, and joined 1st Special Forces Group Airborne. He deployed multiple times to Afghanistan and Iraq while assigned to the Army Special Operations Command. The Army doesn't play, dude. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he deployed 10 times, 12 times, something like that. The Army SF deployment schedule it's out of hand, frankly. Again, it just adds to how sad this is. Among the soldiers, many awards. So he's a Bronze Star with Valor. He's just a very highly decorated soldier. So that article was followed up by this article, which is foul play suspected in death of Green Beret Army vet at Fort Bragg. Now, they're suspecting foul play on this because here's the deal. He was out there. They found him on the range dead, but there were 2 bodies there. So there were 2 people dead there. And what's suspicious about the second person out there is there was no weapon. So the Army has identified the 2 men as Master Sergeant William Levine II. He's 37 years old, Green Beret assigned to Headquarters, and Timothy Dumas, 44, an Army veteran who once served at Fort Bragg. The bodies of the 2 men were found on Wednesday at a training area on the base. In an initial press release, Fort Bragg said that their deaths were not related to unit training, or else their bodies probably wouldn't have had to have been discovered, frankly. The Army's Criminal Investigative Command is investigating the incident. A defense official told ABC News that foul play is suspected in the deaths of both men and that no weapon was found at the scene, which implies to me that there was a third person involved or more. Now, I don't know about this range that they were on, but Army ranges can consist of giant patches of land in the woods, off hiking trails where you're like bushwhacking, doing complex land navigation problems. It doesn't say if it was a firing range, so it doesn't really say what kind of range they were on, which I am curious about. Was it a range where they could have walked out there, or were they even like out in like an impact zone or something like that? Like, who knows what type of range this was. So Army criminal investigators continue to investigate the death in late May of another specialist, Enrique Roman Martinez, a paratrooper who was found decapitated out there. Unbelievable. So, again, this article cites the interview with the colonel out there, but basically it goes on to say that it's tragedy. We've got a soldier who was in for 19 years, Special Forces soldier, deployed multiple times and was murdered. And now we have to wait and see if they find anything on that. Why are we covering murders on Army bases every week? How crazy is that? Like, we should probably have some kind of idea of what is happening within Army bases that has people doing this, frankly. Why is this happening? Like, we know that the Army at one point recruited anybody off the streets, but that's not the case anymore. We are not in a growth period for the military, which I'm going to actually cover in a future video that'll be published directly to YouTube, not from the live show. But we're on like a drawdown period. Like, the Navy is about to offer people early retirements or separation incentives. Recruiting numbers are down as far as goals, and retention is overly high. So what's happening is people aren't getting out of the military right now. So what can we do? Is it a screening process problem? Like, do we need to screen people better? I don't know. I don't have an answer right now. I'm just saying these are the questions I'm asking myself, and these are the questions that maybe we should be asking leadership to see if we can figure it out. So I'm trying to figure out if am I in focus? So I'm looking at myself on the camera here. I can never tell if I'm in focus or not. So and I want to make sure this is good for you guys. So the next story is a good one. We got a booster story here, positive one. So I saw this morning on military.com, airmen who directed danger close airstrikes in ferocious firefight will receive medal. So Air Force Staff Sergeant Alexei Germanovich, Special Tactics Combat Controller with 26 Special Tactics Squadron, 24 Special Operations Air Wing, Air Force Special Operations Command. So what this guy is, what Staff Sergeant Alexei Germanovich is for one, Staff Sergeant in Air Force is an E5. In the Army and Marine Corps, it's an E6, but in the Air Force, it's an E5. E6 in the Air Force is a Tech Sergeant. So he's an E5 who is he's a Special Operations JTAC. Basically, what his job is to conduct air control for soldiers on the ground so that they can focus on being shooters or breachers or medics or whatever their job is. What these guys do is one of the coolest jobs in the military. So a CCT or a combat controller is an Air Force airman who has gone through Special Forces selection and training, including air traffic control school, and now usually deploys as a sole individual to go out to support some kind of SF operations globally, and commonly it is with the Army Green Berets. So I'm just looking up John Chapman here. So John Chapman is a famous Air Force CCT who was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions on August 22nd, 2018 for his, during the Battle of Takur or the Battle of Roberts Ridge, you might know it as. So these guys are out there getting after it like serious battlefield impact. And very few people know a lot about them. Like, I even talked to people who were in the military, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was a CCT. And they're like, what's a CCT? If I said he was a Navy SEAL, if I said this guy was a Navy SEAL, you'd be like, oh, okay, he's a Navy SEAL. You know, I know what that is. But you probably don't know, or you might not know what a CCT is. A CCT has just as much training as a Navy SEAL or a Green Beret or a Marine Raider. They go to selection, they go to jump school, they go to dive school. They are all around badasses. And then not only that, but they deploy by themselves to a team that they might not even know. They just get there and they're like, hey, I'm your CCT. Let's go. Let's get after it. And he starts calling in airstrikes on people. So their main job is to call in and direct airstrikes or coordinate aircraft events for teams. So just a little further background on what a CCT is before I get into what this guy did, which is awesome. A combat controller's responsibility might be coordinating helos into and out of your bases to move people. They might schedule you for any other type of air movement. So they're doing air tasks, air requests, air support requests. They're getting people moving around the country. Then what they generally do is on a mission is take the aircraft that are available to them and direct those aircraft. So they'll call up an aircraft. Let's say there's a A-10 overhead, and they'll say, hey, this is me, and I need you to do a gun run on said target. And then the aircraft will do that gun run, and then they'll coordinate with another aircraft or another airstrike. They'll coordinate medevacs, whatever it is. Any air support goes through these CCTs. Other people can be qualified as JTACs. So a Navy SEAL can be a JTAC. Somebody in the Army can be a JTAC. A Marine can be a JTAC. You can be a JTAC as a qualification. These guys are professional JTACs. That's what they do. They talk to aircraft. So this guy, Alexei Germanovich, so I'll pull up the article here from military.com. The Air Force will award a Special Tactics Combat Controller, or a CCT, the second highest military award for calling in danger-close gunship airstrikes while under siege in Afghanistan. Air Force Secretary Barbara Barrett will present Staff Sergeant Alexei Germanovich of the 26th Special Tactics Squadron out of New Mexico the Air Force Cross, so it's the Air Force Cross, not the Airman Cross, for his actions in Nangarhar Province in 2017. The ceremony will take place December 10th, so that's at the end of this week. Air Force Special Operations Command announced Friday. Germanovich, serving as a Joint Terminal Attack Controller, or a JTAC, under Combined Joint Special Operations Air Component Afghanistan. Sorry, when they start rattling off acronyms, but with the whole word, it's a mouthful. So he was on a mission on April 8th, 2017 to clear and recoup territory from enemy combatants alongside a team of Army Special Forces and Afghan commandos, according to his award citation. So what you're seeing here is you've got a guy who is a CCT out there with a team of Green Berets supporting commandos. Commandos is what we would call Afghanis who were part of maybe an Afghani Special Forces team. So the Afghanis had their own Special Forces, part of the National Army, and we would call them commandos. So somewhere I have a commando patch in store. I wish I had all that stuff. So on April 8th, where am I? So the mission took 17 days. On many of those days, American and Afghan forces faced close combat with enemy forces and required close air support and medical evacuation. 17-day mission. A 17-day mission. Holy smokes. On April 8th, Germanovich and the Special Forces teams found themselves locked in a ferocious firefight and taking a barrage of machine gun and sniper fire that allowed insurgent forces to close in on their location. And guys, this story gets way crazier. During the hours-long battle, Germanovich sprinted hundreds of feet into the open towards his isolated teammates to direct multiple aircraft strafing runs, according to the citation. Some 500-pound and 2,000-pound bombs struck as close as 300 feet from the position. Now, the deal with that is each bomb, one thing that CCTs are experts at is understanding the weapons that are on aircraft. They know better than anybody, frankly, the capabilities of aircraft. Like, you tell them an aircraft, they know what bombs it carries and the effective ranges and distances and how to use those weapons on the battlefield. They're experts at it. No one's better. So he would understand very well what he was asking an aircraft to do when he was dropping these bombs 300 feet away from himself, which was put them at major risk. And I say that not just because of the blast radius of these bombs, which can hurt you, at 100 yards easily, because we're talking about a football field away, which is nothing. That's nothing. So these blasts put them at high risk. Now, the thing is, though, when you call in an airstrike, you're hoping that bomb hits in the exact right spot, but it could easily be off by meters, by 10, 20 meters. And if it is, then you're looking at that bomb hits you or your teammates. And the other thing is, you have to be right on with where you're calling those grids on. So he has to coordinate and say where he wants those bombs to hit. But if he passes the wrong grid, he could call an airstrike on friendly forces. And this is in the middle of chaos, too. Like, this is how serious these guys' jobs are. It's no joke. The thing is, there's multiple ways to do this. And if you guys want to talk more about how airstrikes are conducted, I'll do that on another episode. I would love to. But let's get back to what he did that day, what his actions were. So on April 8th, Germanovich and the Special Forces teams found themselves locked in a ferocious gunfight, taking a barrage of machine gun and sniper fire that allowed insurgent forces to close in on their location. Some 500 and 2,000 pounds bombs struck as close as 300 feet from his position, the service said. After one team member, Army Staff Sergeant Mark de Alencar, was killed in action. Unfortunately, Staff Sergeant Alencar was killed in action. Germanovich moved to place himself between the attacking enemy and his team in order to protect them with his body and employ his own suppressive fires, which means he ran to the killed Staff Sergeant, shielded him, and then returned fire with his own weapon, because CCTs are going to fight too. Like, they're part of the fight. So not only are they shooters while they're doing that while they're talking to these aircraft. With their ammunition dwindling, some members drew their sidearm pistols instead to fight back. Listen, if you pull your pistol, that's a bad day. That's a bad day. That is your backup weapon, and only to be used as a backup weapon when you're within 25 yards. So basically, the way I was trained, and I don't know everyone's tactics, but the way I was trained was, if you have, like, let's say a weapons malfunction, or you run out of ammunition in the magazine that you're using, you transition to your secondary weapon, which would be your pistol, right? But only if they're within 20, if the contact is within 25 yards. If the contact is outside of 25 yards, you fix your malfunction or reload your weapon. So these guys are out of ammunition. First of all, they're on a 17-day mission, right? So they're having to get resupplies at certain points along the way. Then they're running out of ammunition or Winchestering, so they're out of ammo, and they're switching to their sidearms. This is like a worst case scenario. This is not good. Not a good place to be. Not what you want. If you're defending yourself with your pistol, you're on your last resorts here. So, with their ammunition dwindling, some service members drew their sidearm pistols instead to fight back. Germanovich, meanwhile, directed close air support from an AC-130 gunship as close as 100 feet from their location. An AC-130 100 feet away. That is insane. 100 feet, that's not safe. You're talking a minor miscalculation, a stray round coming right at you. During the 8-hour attack, the Special Tactics Airmen also coordinated medical evacuation helicopters to extract the wounded and helped carry a soldier uphill to a landing zone as he continued to call for close air support. More than 150 friendly forces made it out that day because of Germanovich's actions. So when they say more than 150 friendly forces, a lot of those are going to be commandos, because there was probably 20 or 30 Americans on that mission, I would imagine. There was probably the Green Berets, CCT, maybe some infantry guys, maybe some other support staff, and then you would have Afghans and commandos. Through his extraordinary heroism, superb airmanship, and aggressiveness in the face of the enemy, Airman Germanovich reflected the highest credit upon himself in the United States Air Force's citation reads, "The award makes Germanovich the 12th Special Tactics Airman to receive the Air Force Cross since 9/11. I feel like they could have awarded a lot more CCTs, TACPs, JTACs, whatever Special Tactics Airmen, whatever you call their group. They go by a lot of names. The Air Force Cross, because these guys conduct themselves in an absolute exemplary, outstanding manner. Courageous heroes on the battlefield, making a big difference. The Special Tactics community collectively has received 1 Medal of Honor. That's John Chapman. 12 Air Force Crosses and 50 Silver Star medals over the last 2 decades. 50 Silver Stars being the second highest award outside of the Medal of Honor and outside of the branch-specific crosses. So, if you guys don't know about CCTs, they are the real deal. They're the truth, so to speak. I've been lucky enough to work with a bunch of them, and every time was an absolute pleasure. Not only did I learn a lot from them, they're good people. I still stay in touch with a bunch of them. It's an incredible community. These guys are all around world-class badasses, and if you're one of the people watching and listening to the show who are thinking about joining the military and you are thinking about going Special Forces, I would tell you to take a look at the Air Force and the CCT program, because that's a good life. That's a good life. If you're trying to go SF and you're looking for a way to do it, that would be a good way to do it. So I want to go on a little rant here. Feel free to drop any questions in the comments, and I'm happy to answer those. But look, Afghanistan. Freaking Afghanistan, right? It's been in the news a lot lately, the drawdown in Iraq and Afghanistan. The general of the army made news last week when he described the war in Afghanistan as resulting in a modicum of success. A modicum of success. And from the writers at Task and Purpose, they translate that to what Milley is saying is the United States has succeeded in not losing. And you know, if you've been listening to the show for a while, that's basically what I say too. We stopped fighting to win a long time ago, and I saw this article. It's when I talk about this stuff, I am not talking about the soldiers on the ground in Afghanistan. I've made that clear on the show before. I am not talking about the soldiers on the ground in Afghanistan. I'm talking about the intent of our government on the war in Afghanistan. And when I saw this article, I was like, the general of the army and the other people referenced in this article are basically saying what I've been saying. Maybe you listen to the Scuttlebutt Show. I don't know. But check this out. Army General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, solemnly delivered an epitaph for the war in Afghanistan recently when he said the United States had only achieved a modicum of success in the country after 2 decades and a loss of more than 2,400 American sons and daughters. I would also argue that over the last, call it 5 to 7 years at a minimum, we have been in a condition of strategic stalemate, Milley added, while speaking with a foreign policy expert, Michael O'Hanlon, who advised the president-elect Joe Biden's campaign and works at the liberal Brookings Institution think tank in Washington, D.C. That was a mouthful. That was a big sentence. Milley's passive-aggressive appraisal of the situation in Afghanistan reminded me of the time I tried to gently break it to my parents I had gotten a C on an important math test. I said something along the lines of, I didn't get an A, I didn't get a B, but I didn't get a D or an F. That's really true. So, okay, look, here's the deal. I almost activated a hellfire to the face. I'm going to give myself a hellfire on the face because I'm telling you, that's this one hits home for me because I've been saying this for a long time, you guys. I've been saying this for a long time. If you watch the show, you know that for a while I've been talking about the lack of intent in Afghanistan. We're just there to say we're still there. And it's really true. And he said for the last 5 to 7 years at least, let me tell you something. I've been in Afghanistan when they told us to do nothing. If you've been to Afghanistan, you've probably been there and they've said, just don't do anything. Don't do anything. Operations are halted. We are halting operations. Don't do anything. Don't go anywhere. No one leaves the wire. No operations. And then it became no operations for the U.S., but you can you can go back to training Afghanis, but they do everything by themselves. And I'm talking about in 2009. Okay? I'm talking about in 2009. 2013 and 14, forget it. 2015 at Al-Asad Air Base, couldn't leave the base. Had to go up north to get outside the wire. We haven't been you guys know, I'm talking about the government, has not been fighting to win Afghanistan for, I don't even know, most of the time we've been there. Most of the time that we've been there. So now the general of the army is basically saying that. And this year, 2020, the Afghanistan papers came out, which if you guys remember the Afghanistan papers, basically this report comes out. I think the New York Times released the Afghanistan papers, basically saying leadership never had a plan for Afghanistan and believes that we did nothing there. That's a massive summarization of what it was, summary of what it was. But maybe we'll do an episode on the Afghanistan papers. Now, I don't think that. The people who were there don't think that. But that's what the government thinks, and that's what the government's been freaking doing. So what Milley's saying is the United States has succeeded in not losing the war. Yet he correctly guessed that as long as U.S. troops remain in Afghanistan, the Taliban cannot fully defeat the Afghan government. Let me tell you why that is, in my opinion. I don't know if it says it here, but you know why that is? You know why we have so few people in Afghanistan but make such a huge impact? Intelligence and air power. It's all about intelligence and air power. The people that we have in Afghanistan now provide intelligence via human, imminent, all the different intelligence methods, and then we provide air power with surveillance, reconnaissance, and weapons. So that is what we do. Okay, that is what we have to offer. That is why the Taliban is still, participating in ceasefires every now and again, talking about peace. If we totally left and they knew that there was no Americans there and no American interest in supporting the Afghans, because if there's no Americans there, we can just quietly wash our hands of it, and we can stop sending air power and all that stuff, then the Taliban can steamroll the Afghan government, and that's exactly what they'll do. Because, like I said earlier, so many of the government agencies, the Afghan National Army, the militias, anti-Taliban militias, they just don't want it as bad as the Taliban, and they also are so focused on their small lives in their tribes that they can easily be fooled, manipulated. The article says, if all U.S. troops leave Afghanistan by May as expected, then the Taliban's victory will be complete. On the other hand, if Biden keeps a small counterterrorism force in the country, the Afghan government may be able to hold out for longer, but to what end? So that is the question. That's the question, and I'm going to leave that one there because we got to get to the main story. The question is, what's the point? The question is, what's the point? What are we going to do there? Like, there's no goal. There's no clear goal. Are we just biding time for what? For like a president who's finally going to come in and say, we're leaving Afghanistan. The Taliban's still a very powerful force over there. The Afghan government's still totally disorganized and shoddy, and that's it. Now we're done. Or somebody ever going to acknowledge that the threat to the United States is not as high as it was once? Because if the threat to the United States was so high, we would have a larger presence there. I could go back and forth about this all day. If you or someone you know wants to come on a show and talk about the war in Afghanistan with me, let me know. I would love to have guests on and hear your thoughts, and I would love it if you comment down below what you think about the war in Afghanistan. I'll address all those comments. So, look, we got the big story of today, okay? We got the big story. Let me throw 7 minutes on the clock for no reason, because this is the big story. The big story. This gave me PTSD. I had a PTSD attack when I saw this, okay? The Navy, a Navy ship out of San Diego, California, tried to screw 400 sailors out of holiday leave with an extra long COVID-19 quarantine. When I saw this, I was like, oh, here we go. I can talk about this one. The crew of the USS Rushmore was ordered to return to the ship despite being told that they had Thanksgiving weekend off. So here's the deal. The USS Rushmore, San Diego-based ship, said they had a quarantine to halt the spread of the novel coronavirus while getting the ship ready for sea, and that has led to a crisis in morale. Last Saturday, the crew, let me pull up Safari here. The crew of about 400 was ordered to return to the ship, despite being told they had the Thanksgiving weekend off. That night, they were also going to be sequestered on board the ship while in port for 28 days beginning last Monday to prepare for a 7-day period at sea. Listen to me. They were going to quarantine the sailors on a ship for 28 days to prepare for 1 week underway. A total, if my math is correct, of 35 days. 35 days they were going to have these guys and gals on this ship over Christmas. Are you joking? Over Christmas. They were going to have them on there for Christmas, canceling holiday leave, canceling Thanksgiving. What the hell is that about? So, and I'll get into what it was about. But the ship life is tough. I talked about it in the show before. Ship life is tough. There's this thing that the Navy does called a fast cruise. And a fast cruise, I actually have been on fast cruise on New Year's, as a matter of fact, on my very first deployment on the Reagan. The fast cruise, what that is before and underway, they bring everybody onto the ship, and you have to live on the ship for the days leading up to your underway. And the reason that they do that is to make sure that they have a good accountability, to make sure that the ship's in good working order, and that nothing goes wrong on the moment that they're going to go pull out of port. Because that's a big process. When a ship pulls in and out of port, that's actually a big deal. And it takes a lot of organization. It has to be on time, too, because port ops are a big part of that. So you have to work with the port in order to get in and out of the ship, or in and out of the port, like get your ship off the pier. So the worst part of ship life is being on the ship when it's not sailing. Like, imagine you're in the Navy and you have to live on board a ship with all those people in that tiny little rack with that ship food, and you're right there. You can see your house. You can look off the boat. You can see your house. And you're like, I just want to go home. They're like, nope. You're done with work at, 4 o'clock, but you have a good night. Go back to your rack. Sweepers, man your brooms. It's torturous. It's seriously not a fun deal. You go on fast cruise. It is a morale killer. And I'm talking about 48 hours, 72 hours, 5 days is brutal. And that's not even, forget about holidays. Forget about the fact that it's over Christmas. So this ship is going on a 28-day fast cruise for their 1 week underway. And that doubles the Navy standard 14-day, which I guess is what they're doing for COVID. So Navy leaders on Tuesday abandoned the sequester plan after the Union Tribune asked about it. So after it broke on the media, they got their act together. They said the crew will be permitted to leave the ship, a Navy official with knowledge of the event said. According to the official, the 28-day sequester was announced by the ship's captain, but it would not have been approved by the fleet commanders in San Diego. But the ship's captain had initiated the sequester before finalizing the scheduling plans with leadership. I got to see the result of this command climate survey. When that ship does their command climate survey, I got to see the results. The skipper has a big say in the morale of the ship, and this was going to be one of the worst morale events in the history of the U.S. Navy. This is like up there with getting your deployment extended, getting your orders canceled, finding out that your wife moved away with your kids while you were gone, something like that. Like, this is a bad morale booster. So according to the official, so Commander Nicole Schwegman, a Naval Surface Force U.S. Pacific Fleet spokeswoman, said in a statement Wednesday that the crew will be with their families over the holidays. Leadership is making every effort to maximize the holiday leave period so that the sailors will have a chance to spend time with their families while also ensuring that the ship is able to meet readiness requirements. The 29-year-old USS Rushmore is an amphibious dock landing ship. It has spent more than a year in maintenance since returning to San Diego after an 8-month deployment. So it's been in maintenance for a while. Now, here's where it gets like, okay, I can sort of understand the thinking of the skipper, right? So before we get into this, let's really quick, the skipper's responsible for the ship. The mission comes first. Mission first, sailor always. The ship has to meet mission. That's the deal. Okay, that's the deal. So when I read this part, I was like, okay, I kind of see what is going on here. Do I think it was the right move? Absolutely, I do not. But here's the deal. Recently, the ship failed 2 critical assessments that are required before going to sea. Its chief engineer was fired after the first assessment failed in October, sailors on board the ship said. Before conventionally powered ships can leave port, the crews must demonstrate they can start the engines in what the Navy calls the light-off assessment. The Rushmore failed its first light-off assessment in October and its second on November 25th, basically Thanksgiving. So the ship failed its 2 assessments, which are a big deal. There's all these events on the ship. A big one that you might remember if you were in the Navy on a ship was INSURV, inspection and survey, right? You do these big inspections prior to going on deployment. They're conducted by a third-party Navy command who comes on there and decides if your ship is ready to go or not, and they failed. And when a ship fails inspection, stand by. You can plan on standing by and spending a lot of time on that ship, and maybe rightfully so. Maybe you got to get your act together. Maybe you got to go repair the ship. I mean, that's the deal. The fleet's got to stay up. So, according to the sailors on board, the ship had a significant outbreak of COVID-19 early in November, resulting in more than 100 crew members being quarantined off the ship. Many of the affected sailors work in the engineering department, the most involved in the light-off assessments. Okay, so now the puzzle pieces are starting to come together. This is almost starting to make sense now. Schwegman confirmed there had been a coronavirus cluster on the ship, but did not say how many sailors were sick or quarantined. The Defense Department also has not been disclosing COVID-19 case numbers by ship since the pandemic's earliest days. Look at these ads. Being able to get a ship to sea is a key requirement of Navy commanders. The Rushmore's commanding officer, Commander Robin Marling, is under pressure to not fail a 3rd assessment. Yeah, that's 100% true, or else that skipper's going to be getting fired. While the onboard sequester is over, the pressure to get back on schedule is still on. The crew's working hours ahead of the next assessment has been extended. Shifts are working from 6:45 a.m. to 8 p.m. through December 18th. If the ship passes, members of the crew will be able to take the holiday leave and travel outside the area. But Schwegman declined to say what would happen if the ship fails. The skipper's probably going to get fired, and then that ship is going to be in big trouble. Probably get higher command oversight, some admiral comes on board, it's going to be a bad day. The Navy has been the most visible military branch straining to maintain operations during the pandemic. The San Diego-based aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt made worldwide news when it was sidelined for more than 2 months, and one chief, Charles Thacker, died of COVID. The incident led to the reassignment of former commander Brett Crozier, and then the Secretary of the Navy was eventually fired for that. So COVID has just been a bad deal. Despite just returning from deployment this summer, the Roosevelt is also expected to deploy again within 3 weeks. That's common for a ship to deploy and then redeploy again under like a RIMPAC mission or something like that. So the Navy is under a lot of pressure right now, and that story was totally insane. I feel bad for the sailors on that ship who were about to be sequestered on board, quarantined for a month to just prepare for a 1 week underway, which is probably just sea trials to make sure that the ship is seaworthy. But they can't even get their engine started. But their engineering department did have a giant outbreak of COVID, and they failed 2 of their assessments. So, that is not good. So the USS Rushmore, that is not good. Good luck getting your ship together. Get your ship together. Would you guys buy a t-shirt that said, "Get your ship together"? If you would, let me know in the comments down below. Like this video and share it. That was the last story that I had today that was on the docket. So the other thing, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, that I want to talk about was Alwyn Cash. President Trump authorized the Medal of Honor for Alwyn Cash. So hopefully he gets that soon. Posthumously, of course, he was killed, I think like it would have been 17 years ago, while rescuing soldiers from a Vic. So good for him. I'm really proud of the government for getting their stuff together for that and getting him the award that he freaking deserves. Okay? That's the award that he freaking deserves. I wanted to thank you guys for checking out this special Monday episode of the Scuttlebutt Show. Tomorrow is going to be our Pearl Harbor special, so stand by for a cool Pearl Harbor episode with clips from an interview with Pearl Harbor survivor, Navy warrior Stu Headley, who went on to go deploy in basically every major battle of the Pacific after Pearl Harbor as a sailor. And the story that we had with him, the stories he told us were extremely emotional, extremely powerful, vivid. You know, it's something about the military when you consider the effects of the military on somebody, and we've all seen it on interviews on TV, but this is going to be us in the future. Try to remember that. You see somebody who's old, like really old, and when they talk about their military service, look how engaged they are. Look how vividly they remember it and able to describe it to you. Still crying, thinking about it, of their experiences in war. And even when other faculties of theirs start to fade, their memory and experience of war remains. And I think that goes to show you how much it imprints on us after you've been in combat, after you've been in the military. And that's one of the reasons why I do the Scuttlebutt Show, is to give us all a place to go and trade stories and see stories and talk about military news and get that out of our system, once a day, a few times a week, whatever, so we can maintain our sanity a little bit, right? So I really appreciate you guys. Like I said earlier, if you or somebody you know might be a good guest for the Scuttlebutt Show, send them my way. Email me at thescuttlebuttshow@gmail.com. The Patreon page is now live. It's in the description of this video. There are going to be some changes coming up to the show. I think one of them is going to be the live show video will only be available on Patreon on replay. So the live show will still go out every day on YouTube for free. But the replay, so I'm going to upload those to Patreon so you can go watch the videos back. The podcast will always be free. The podcast will always be free and always be available to listen to wherever you listen to podcasts. If you would, go check out the Patreon page. That would mean the world to me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you guys watching the show, listening to it, engaging with me, buying t-shirts, all that stuff. The best way to support the show now would be either buy merch or go to Patreon and become a patron. And like I said, if you become an elite level patron, you get a free t-shirt. So it basically pays for itself after the first 2 months. And our t-shirts are really nice, high quality. I'll find out about the cotton for Rage Guy, if it's sustainable cotton, but I can't answer that question right now. But I will hopefully tomorrow. As always, it's 11:55. We came in just 5 minutes under. We got through a lot today. Today's episode was awesome. Was today's episode awesome or what? I had a great time. I would love to hear more questions from you guys. I would love to hear more about you. If you want to drop down in the comments on tomorrow's episode or whatever, do that. Go check out the review of Mosul, which is on YouTube right now. Mosul was a great movie about the Iraq war against ISIS. And tomorrow is the Pearl Harbor special. So with that, I will bid you all adieu. Happy Monday here in Japan. Happy Sunday evening back in the United States. If you want, you can check this full episode out on the podcast later today. I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow. I'm out for now.